Okay, it is September 9th, 2025. We're going to take a look at a property that is being sold just north of, it's in Acadia, Louisiana. This is well, I'll show you the broker notes on this real quick. Pull those up. This is a multifamily rehab property. It's about 50% occupied, and 50% of the property needs to be rehabbed. So here are the notes. 100 units, 51 in commerce, 49 vacant. Most of those vacant are substantially repaired. Need substantial repairs. We have a rehab budget. $1.5 million we provide previous buyers we were working with. So there's only somewhere close to 3.6 million, estimated ARV 8.8 million. Property is also under a LURA contract, which is a government housing program, from my understanding, in Louisiana. We'll look into that a little bit more. Details are provided on request. Has already been approved transfer to buyer. We also have completed phase 1 study as well. We can provide. So not a ton, but enough information to kind of get us going. This is a rehab project. Like I said, about half the property is vacant. Kind of like that. We have a group that we work with that does big rehabs like this, and my partners and I have the ability to basically raise capital from them to acquire these types of properties, and this is right up their alley potentially. So that's something that we're interested in. The fact that we have 50 units that are actually, normally if I was looking at a property and I had 50% vacancy, that would be a problem. But in this case, we know that they need rehab, and this is exactly the type of property that we're looking for. So those 50 units that are it's kind of an interesting situation. So when we're looking at this, I'm going to want to be making sure that I'm looking at kind of from two different perspectives. The rehab units almost as like their own separate building, and then figuring out if or buildings, like their own asset, and then figuring out if the existing 50 units that are in place that are generating 51 units that are generating revenue are worth the 3.6 million that we're buying, right? That's so it'll be an interesting one to go through. Because of the rehab, we're probably not going to disqualify this thing right off the bat. We will likely end up going to a financial model on something like this, because unless we can just figure out that 3.6 million is insane, but who knows there. The thing here is with the rehab, we really are trying to solve for this, if that estimated ARV price, they're saying $8 million, whether or not that's true or not, who knows. So we likely will end up going all the way through a financial model. We may even end up going all the way through the acquisition process and do a full due diligence on this property. If this is a property that our partners are interested in buying, we will certainly go. We can certainly go the distance in something like this. We won't know. We're gonna go through step by step. So this video is gonna be phase 1. We're gonna go through the first checklist, and then I'll do checklist after checklist on this entire property. So we'll go through all of the checklists on this and see where we end up. See if there's a point where it gets killed, or see if we go all the way to the end. So we've already kind of established what we're trying to do here. It'll be a little bit of a different process. The reason that I'm interested in this property, where is Thibodeau, Louisiana? So this is where the property is located. This is Homa right here. The property is located up here near Acadia. Thibodeau, probably pronouncing it my Louisiana heritage. Don't really know how to pronounce all these towns. So south of Baton Rouge and on the main corridor that goes down to Port Fourchon. So for those of you who are not familiar that are watching this later on, Port Fourchon is, like kind of the central hub of almost all of the oil and gas work that goes on out of Louisiana and the Gulf. There's certainly other ports that are important, but Port Fourchon, that's where a lot of the big players. So if we zoom in on Fourchon, it's a tiny little speck of dust type of, you know, island out near Grand Isle, but very significant location. You know, you'll see as we zoom in, you got Oceaneering here. I think these are Edison Schwest docks. There's Halliburton docks here, Bollinger shipyards, Baker Hughes. You know, these are major oil and gas players. Harvey Gulf, GIS. These are all big players that are, you know, they are, you know, they're helicoptering people out to ships. They have run OSVs out of here, running them out to rigs, ships, everything that goes on the Gulf. A lot of it runs through Fort Fourchon. And this corridor, as you can see, there's one road in and one road out. It's, you know, that's it. And that road runs directly past this apartment complex. Um, and that road continues all the way up to Baton Rouge. And so this is a major corridor. Then, you know, it hits 90. It's right here at the, you know, the intersection of 90. 90 goes out to New Orleans, and it goes all the way over to Lafayette. So this place is kind of in a central corridor of a lot of, you know, oil and gas, blue collar workers. Um, so there's just a lot of opportunity here. These are the types of places that, even though this is kind of a secondary market, this is a market that we keep a close eye on. Now, one thing to keep in mind out here is, based on this location, you have good and bad things. And one thing we also want to look into here is, this is all bayous and marsh and swamp land. Everything you see here that's green is the reason there's not buildings and stuff in between these areas, because it's all swamps. And so we want to make sure that we're not, you know, flood zones are going to be a big issue here. We're going to definitely want to check windstorm insurance, you know, things like that, because the hurricane comes through here, this property's getting hit. There's no dodging it. So things to keep in mind, things we like, things to definitely we're going to look into deeper. But just to give you an idea of why this is even an area that we would even consider, most people probably would look at this and they would overlook it. For us, this is something that we would look at and we would say, okay, there's opportunity here. Now, that also comes with caveats as well, as we need to look at the oil and gas market in that area. We need to look at occupancy rates. We need to make sure that, you know, price of oil is supposed to go down next year. It's been going down, so that may have an impact. But typically, this area still has there's a lot of stuff going on out here. It almost never ends. But we will, you know, we'll look closely at everything. So we'll go ahead and get started. I think I already got the checklist going, so here we go. Exactly what the name of this property is. Pull it up. Plantation Terrace Apartments. Um, yeah, I think I took a look at it a little earlier. I didn't really. I mean, this is not. Looks decent. I mean, they have a pool, which they clearly have some photos of. I mean, it looks like a decent enough area, or a decent enough, you know, property. It's nothing special here. This is, you know, we're definitely in probably. I imagine this is pretty C class territory. You know, uh, it may have some. I think there's a laundry. I think there's a laundry room. I think, you know, it's got a swimming pool, but it's certainly not. You know, this is certainly C-class property. We'll take more in-depth look at this all, but I just wanted to pull up a couple photos so you kind of know what we're dealing with. So yeah, what do we have on this property from a financial standpoint? We didn't get a ton, and it's possible that, you know, we'll have to go back, but a lot of this is going to be on projection anyways, because there's such a big rehab portion of this property. So, you know, for now, I'm not as concerned about the P&Ls, and they've been doing a bunch of rehabbing on this property, so they may not even have a lot of P&Ls, but we'll see what they have. Let's pull open some stuff. So. This looks like a map of the property. Yeah, so this is just their map. Looks like it has some stuff about which buildings have one bedroom, so that'll be useful. All right, these look like the P&L details. Let's see. This is all their deposits. Which is great. This definitely helps us kind of figure out, you know, we can go through this and export this data and figure out exactly how much money they're making. Interesting. These are all Entergy payments, water payments potentially. Oh, okay, wow. So this has, okay, so this isn't just rental payments. This is all their expenses broken into categories. See, these are utilities, electric that they're paying. Contract labor. Very interesting. Pest control. Now, depending on how they, this is a budget. So this is their budget that I think they said that another buyer put this budget together, you know, but then they didn't end up buying it. So maybe they found out that their budget was way off and this is just the budget that they had. This is the total for 81 units. Average per unit, 15,000 a unit doesn't seem too crazy. Here's our exterior renovation. Now they're saying grand total for 81 units, and this is saying 28 units. What's 350 Yeah, so that's only 28 units, 425. Oh, and then they're saying these are the additional. And a lot of this is just deferred maintenance. So you got 28 plus 16, so you have 30, 46 units that they're saying need renovation, and you've got just deferred maintenance on other units. So, okay. I mean, first impression, 15,000 a unit doesn't seem, that seems probably about standard. Having some units that are going to be a little bit more makes sense if they're extremely damaged. And then, you know, we'll have to go through this line by line. I don't think this is insane for a property this size. There's a lot of exterior renovations. I think that, the only thing I'm not seeing here is roofs. So we'll definitely want to understand that. They do have some air handler stuff, but we'll need to make sure we understand the situation with the HVAC, electrical. But it seems like they've kept this property. I mean, they're operating half this property, so I hopefully this is more of just a, this isn't a full gut situation on some of these buildings, but you never know. We will take this at face value. We will maybe use this in our initial estimate to see if, what this looks like, but we're gonna have our own inspectors and construction people come out there and give this thing a review of their own. Let's see, these are rent rolls. So it looks like they got 53 units occupied. So slightly more than what they said, but potentially slightly less. Some of these may be vacant, or they need to be renovated regardless, even though there's somebody living in them. I've seen people living in conditions that you wouldn't believe. So this is not, it doesn't mean that not all these units need to be renovated. Total receipts 44,000 a month. So okay. And then they gave us 2 sets of P&Ls. So this is a T6, it looks like. Well, technically not trailing 6, but it is year-to-date 6. I mean, we're in September. They're showing 150,000 NOI. A little bit lower than what they showed in the previous year. Interesting. They're showing in January 40,000, 36,000. 40. It's 233 and this is at 208, so slightly lower. But yeah, it looks like they're averaging around 40 grand a month, which we can, one thing we'll do is eventually, we won't do it right now, but rent rolls are saying 44,000. When is this rent roll dated? 6/25/25. So here's 6/25. It's showing 40,000. This is telling me 44,000. So always verify what's going on. Why is this not matching this June, right? Yeah, June 25th. So as of June 25th. They may say, oh, that's next month or something. But, anyways, stuff to keep in mind. Keep an eye out for. Let's see. Now also look at their detailed P&L. This is going to be interesting. So we have a lot of data. So this is due June 24th, June 1st through June 24th. So I would need to take their, this is a true T12 from June. I really need to, take basically these two spreadsheets that were provided and combine them together and see if this adds up. But we'll do kind of a quick sniff test. We won't go through everything. So you're showing 515 as the total revenue. What was it last year? $475. What is this? July 242. And 234. That's 476. So all I did there is just did July and then December, from July 24 through, I just did the sum here, which is 242. And then I just added that to 234, which is 476. They're showing 515. So we're really going to want to make sure that this looks like it's coming straight out of QuickBooks or something. So this is going to be, this seems fairly accurate, but we're going to want to compare this to this other information. But for now, we're just kind of skimming it right now, just kind of seeing what's going on. This is their other income line, total rental income. These are fees, vending machine income. So there's a vending machine on here. I want to make sure that we just note some of these things. Late fees. Late fees aren't something you like bank on. They're not exactly like recurring revenue. So, and also seeing a ton of late fees, maybe its own concern. Who are the problem children, tenants? Forfeited deposits. These are people they evicted, prorated, eviction fee, defaulted, unpaid rent, cleaning fees, unpaid rent. This is actually great because you usually don't get this much detail up front. So it is actually really nice to have those because you're going to really start to get an idea of what's going on. I like to go into P&Ls and really uncover everything, and this helps tell a story because this is actual bank statement level almost. So here's our total gross profit. This is our total income. Okay, and then so here's all their expenses. Accounting and legal. Automobile, fuel charges. This is an interesting line item. It's $4,200 for a due and subscription. I think this is some type of Louisiana housing something, maybe commission. So also, you'll notice we have an interest expense here, which, depending on how we acquire this, there's not going to be this loan expense. So this is just something to keep in mind, that like this $38,000 line item. Let's see how they did it here. So T12 for a second. Office expense, pest control, repairs, electric. Okay. Not seeing the interest expense on here, which that's fine. I mean, you wouldn't expect it. It's not, should not be on the T above the NOI line item, but oh no, it is here. So interest expense right here, $49,000 in interest expense. This is all First American Bank loans. Check. So, this is a line item we're definitely going to want to keep an eye on, because potentially I would not expect to still have this loan once we acquire this property. We're going to have a new loan, or, we're going to take this loan out. So these line items for interest expenses theoretically will be removed. Looks like they're still here as well. So yeah, we'll definitely want to keep an eye on that as we move forward. And again, we're not going to get into that right now. Well, we will a little bit maybe, because we do want to make sure we will check a little bit, and I'll show you in the pro forma checklist that when we get into the first checklist, we'll look at the pro forma checklist, make sure we're covering everything. Typically, forced place insurance is like they didn't pay their insurance, so then they're forced to have insurance by the bank. But so we'll have to get a better understanding of that. What's going on there? Do they owe money on that? Parts and supplies. Okay. Spending a lot of money on water. Not as much on electric, but water certainly quite a bit. We'll have to understand if is there any type of revenue opportunity here, or is that standard for the area? All right, so this is showing an NOI of 28 through 31. Yeah. We'll have to verify this. I'll have to go through all these different credits and debits and balances and just verify all of this. But good detail to have, definitely helpful. And it's going across both spreadsheets, so definitely have to like catch that up and normalize that. Let's see. So okay, so all right, let's go back to our checklist. So we don't have this. We have 2024. I mean, in this situation, we're probably not going to get 3 years of rent rolls, just or T12s or profit and loss statements because they may not have it, just because they were doing a bunch of renovations. It may not be worth anything to us, anyways. Really, the last 12 months is the only thing that matters, anyways. Showing 12 months of utility bills, I don't think we had that, so we don't have that yet. Most recent property tax, we don't have that. Oh, well, we'll pull that. And we'll go get it right now. So, parishes, not counties in Louisiana. I just try the map. Sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's not, sometimes it's super slow. Properties right around here. This is the property. All right, here we go. So it looks like the total taxes they paid was something like $13,000. We'll just kind of verify that. Well, if they have it in their P&L, which I'm not seeing it. Interesting. All right. What about the previous one? Or the 2025? Yeah, no property taxes, so we're not seeing that. These are, just this is why we do checklists, make sure we're going through every single thing, right? We wanna pull it all. Let's print the assessment. See what it gives us. $13,000. Okay, perfect, cool. This is what we want. We will save this. So now I've got a copy of their assessment. So and sometimes I'll like put in that same custom print assessment. Maybe I'll just print with everything too, just make sure I get everything. Takes 2 seconds, save it. I like to save these things as I go, makes my life easier later on when I'm creating that data room. Here's the tax assessment. It's got all the information, that I need for when I'm dealing with our investors, showing them that we've got everything. I like to be more prepared with our investors than I typically get from the sellers or their agents. So I'll literally take this document and I'll throw it into a data room and say, here's the tax assessment. They don't need to go look it up. Here it is, right? You just pulled it up. You can see all the information. It's got the assessment numbers, so we can go look it up. We'll provide the link as well. But at least here we know what it was appraised at. We know when they bought it, what they bought it for. So yeah, and this is, now we can come into our checklist and we'll check this off. Yep. All right, so they're asking 3.6 million. What's the square footage on this property? Luckily, we have the assessment. We'll find out really quick, hopefully. Oh, maybe not. This stuff. Maybe we can find it. All right. All I'm trying to do right now is get the square footage, but this property hasn't been sold in a while, so usually you'd have something on this, but this is really interesting that they have this right here. Let's save this. We're gonna be looking up FMRs at some point anyways, so might as well save that even though it's not. Well, all right. Oh, here we go. 77,503 square feet. I don't know, I missed that before. Usually you can get the square foot pretty easily. You gotta know where to look. Unit count is 100. Yeah, so $36,000 per unit, and price per square foot $46 per square foot. Right now, we're just this is just us collecting data, getting an idea of what we're dealing with. I don't know if that's good or bad for this market, at least in the price per square foot. Price per unit, I mean, $36,000 in most markets pretty good. So we'll see. But also, we know that 50% of those units are in bad shape. So realistically, we're paying for 51 units at $70,000 a unit. So that's just something we want to make sure. But we're still getting a price per square foot of $46 a square foot because we're getting all those additional units. So, if that $70,000 price, and the reason I said this is almost certainly going to end up doing a financial model, is because that $70,000 per unit price on those 50 units makes sense, and we're getting all these additional units basically. If we're getting those, if the market is showing that for 50 units at $70,000 a unit's a good deal, then we're essentially getting 49 units that, yeah, they need to be rehabbed, but we're getting them at basically no cost, if that makes sense. It's not really, it's just kind of a way to think about it. It's like, the price per unit's pretty low on average. We got to spend 15, $20,000 per unit, but if the market's at 70, you can see where the money is going to be made. Um, we don't know if that's where the market's going to be at. We will certainly find out, but not right now. So the next thing that we need to do, there's a couple of things. I'm just going to look at their 2024 uh, financials for right now because, I don't think we're going to disqualify this property in this first checklist, anyways. Usually, I'm using this financial analysis to kind of do a disqualification of a property early on. Um, we'll do a little bit of that, but so we know the taxes were something like $13,000. They did have insurance in here. They didn't have taxes. That's why we always check. They're showing income of 510. I would say some of that is probably I would actually say their income. I would pull out all these application fees, commissions, the vending machine income. Maybe not, but that's not it's almost negligible. Uh, Late fees. I don't like to put this as actual income. It's not realistic. Um, well, it's not that it's not realistic. It will likely happen if it's happening now. But do I want to bank on it? Probably not. Operating expenses 230. Now, I am going to say that this is 230 plus. I'm going to also add in 13,000. I'm going to add in that insurance cost, right? Because they didn't do it. Net operating income, I'm just going to. And then. They're saying 280. Well, I don't want to trust their estimates. Just because we know already there's some issues. the other issue? There was something else. Well, we don't have any management fees in here, anything like that. Dues and subscription. I'm not even seeing payroll in here. Yeah, there's no payroll. So, I mean, realistically, we're going to be looking at, yeah, we can leave that as theirs. And then for ours, it's like, we're also going to add, um, we're going to want to subtract out like another, call it 49,000. Well, I'd say like equals this. I mean, let's call it 5% just to be conservative. And then that's just for management. One of the things I found interesting, oh, there's also this interest expense. So that's something that needs to be accounted for on both ends. Both on theirs. We also need to add back in, 49,393, which this will benefit, the valuation of the property, potentially quite a bit. 'Cause even though maybe we had those, we had some taxes added in and we had management costs added in. Yeah, I mean that's not bad when we take that interest expense out. That's something to always keep in mind. I just can't tell you how many times I see interest thrown in above the line. Um, and then we could go down the route of thinking about like water. There's $29,000 in water spent last year, and we've seen on that other P&L there's quite a bit. Um, and we certainly are going to look at all of this. Don't get me wrong. Just for like our initial conversation, it's like if I'm looking at this, I'm saying, okay, let's say I don't even add that water income line item in, and they're saying the marketed cap rate. I mean, they're going to be closer to like 8.25%. That's on like actual. That's not what they're actually marketing because they're not actually accounting for this interest, and it's better for me to know what they're not doing versus what they are doing in reality. But they're essentially saying they're going to get it an 8 cap at their price, 8.5 cap. I know that realistically, that's like a little bit low. It's probably closer to an 8 cap. So yeah, that was the actual cap rate. Let's make sure you're dividing. Yeah, so in reality, we're getting this around like 7.58, and our current market desired rate minimum is like 7.1. So I mean, I don't think that, and we didn't go through this line by line. And obviously, you saw there's a document that has like 1,000 lines in it. So we're gonna have to really dig through this, and we will do that. Don't get me wrong, but at least in the surface, and that's just to buy these initial, and that's why I was saying like we're gonna end up going to a financial model because this is just for those 51 units. We're essentially just paying for that at that cap rate, but then we have additional capital expenditure that's going to come on the back end for development costs. So that's going to be one of the next steps that we go through. The only thing we didn't check on the insurance, and we'll do a quick check. We're going to want to take a note. We're gonna want to take a note to check for windstorm insurance. I don't know about Louisiana, but in Texas, a place like this, we probably have some kind of windstorm insurance. what he's gonna want to do is figure out if this place is in a flood zone. Hmm. So we're definitely gonna want to get an idea here because this looks like a flood zone. Hard to tell. Like this area right here looks like a flood zone. It may be because of whatever this is. I don't know. This whole area is all flood zoney. You know, there's a lot of bayous and washouts and stuff. So it's just something. Yeah, it looks like maybe this like river area is causing it. There's some kind of like river that runs through here, and maybe it stops here. But we will inquire. We will want to get a better idea what the flood situation is here. Again, you get a lot of flood zones in this area, just all the different river deltas and stuff that are coming out. Okay. This will say. All right. We did a little bit of that. Okay. We're in okay position here. Property of first mortgage, second mortgage. So All I'm doing right now is I'm just going to like the county clerk, but in Louisiana, it's parishes. I'm trying to figure out where I can find this information. Thought I was in the right place. It says available on this site, and I clicked at the parish, and I'm looking for property records, and it says on this site. So now I just need to fix it. I find it, I guess. I don't know. This is like alerts. Oh, here we go. Here we go. It's just you recording. Kind of just guessing right now. Well, I don't want to record something. Okay, I'm possibly going to the wrong place. Okay, let's see. So we want to do public records search. Here's the instrument number. We're gonna screenshot this real quick just so that we know. I think this is their mortgage. Yeah, so here's the property, here's the mortgage. So it looks like it's a $2.225 million mortgage, and I think that they took it out in like 2007, so they probably paid off quite a bit of that mortgage right now. So I think the multiple indebtedness thing is more. I think it more has to do with the amount of money that I think they've given them like a $50 million line of credit or something like that. I don't know. I'll have to do more looking into it, but essentially it looks like they've got a $2.2 million mortgage. When we get to full title search, everything will come up. Right now, I just wanted to get an idea of what was going on. It would be better if I could figure out how to get the actual property, but really does not make it easy. Yeah, so I think for now, just because this platform is not very easy to use, we're just going to capture all this current. I don't think any of this other stuff. This is back when I bought it. We'll just capture all this for now. We have an idea what's going on. I'm not really worried. We're paying cash on this property anyways, so if we were to buy it, so it's not something that we would be too concerned about. The only thing we're really concerned about is, making sure that we are, making sure that there's not some massive loan on the property or something that we're not catching, but that's what the title company's for. So we're going to do that anyways. I just do an initial check up front just to get an idea what's going on. In this situation, it does have a mortgage, unknown. On this, we're not really worried about this. We're not worried about this, and we're not worried about this. I don't know if they have any penalties or not. Doesn't seem like it, but we'll dig deeper later. I would say that this property potentially could get financing. I mean, I think that we'll certainly be trying to get different types of financing on this deal. Potentially like DSCR lender on a portion of it, and then agency financing would be like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. Like we would, I think eventually we'd be able to get it. Initially, we'd probably do like DSCR loan and then construction debt, but we'll see how that goes. Best friends use. I'm gonna ignore this for right now. Highest monthly expenses. Again, I'm not gonna pay attention to right now. We'll get to that later. We're gonna dig in this one. Will the DSCR be in the worst month? Again, we're this is going to be broken. We'll probably have like a first position loan and a second position loan. So the DSCR would really be based on like that $3.6 million sale. So if I say, real simple way to look at this is to just look at, bank rate, mortgage calculator. We're going to say 3.6 million. And then, 20% down. And let's see, interest rate's fine. So that's saying principal and interest. Not really worried about taxes and home insurance, but 19,160. So what was the NOI we were estimating? So 229,000. So you know, 1.19. So it's a little low. Better at their number. 1.29 on that 3.6 million. So again, that's where like when we get deeper into the financial model, we'll really dial in what this, how much cash is going to have to come out of pocket, because that's going to determine. So 25%, it's at 1.27. So when we run the full financial model, we're basically going to be doing it in a way to explain to the DSCR lender how much money they should give us. It also tells us how much money is going to have to be raised or put up to, take the property down just the initial purchase. I'm probably gonna push for some type of like, hey, you guys carry this to, this $1 million for me until we're done with construction. You carry it, we'll take this over, we'll renovate it, and then at the end of the term, we'll refi it out. That way, I can get away with that 900K, potentially not having to like come cash out of pocket on it. Because that has a cost to it, right? There's opportunity costs to everything. If I'm putting up $1 million, even from investors, that's going to cost me 8% IRR. If I'm taking it out of construction debt, that's going to have a cost associated with it. But just knowing that, hey, I can bring in a DSCR lender, and then I'll bring in construction financing, go to the seller, say, look, I need you 50 units. It's going to take me a year to, it's going to take me 5 units a month. So estimated it's going to take us about a year to rehab this whole thing. There's your, actually more than that, because 5 units would be, it'd be like 10 to 18 months, I would say, on something. Depends. They know, they've dealt with this. So I would probably go ask for a carryback or something on this, just for the construction long term. So I don't have to raise additional capital. It's like, just come in, we'll bring in a loan, we'll pay you a big chunk of money, you carry me back, and then now I don't have to raise as much money, and then we'll go get a construction loan. See what they say. NOI sufficient to cover it, potentially. Again, that's all depends on what kind of down payment we're paying and interest rate we're getting. Sawyer's documents match other. We didn't get an OM on this. Property expenses. We're gonna do some more research into this. We can always do the old Crexy search. Try to see what's what around here. This will probably be the last thing I do tonight. And then we'll move on to the next checklist, and we'll come back on some of this stuff. It's kind of a ongoing thing. Like sometimes I don't have all the answers up front. So I know we're gonna go deeper. So right now I don't need to answer everything, but we will come back and answer everything eventually, to the best of our ability. There's probably not gonna be a ton of stuff here. Just guessing because of location. Maybe in Houma. This is a little rural, so we're gonna have to kind of take like this whole area. Yeah, so there's 7 properties in this area, but luckily there's a few here. So so this one's in the same area. This is Houma. This is Houma. So here, okay, so right here, 23 units, 1.4 million. This is selling at 60,000 a unit. What were we at? 36 a unit. But that was on. They're asking 70,000 a unit. And realistically, even at 36, they're telling us that rehab's going to be 15 plus another, what was it, $600,000. So we're going to be we're going to be over 50 plus a unit acquisition. But that's just one property. And there's also smaller properties. Sometimes those, let's see. They're asking 2.4 on 96 units. So that's actually a lot cheaper. But this one I think was saying that there's a lot of upside, which typically means that. $96 units. That's $25,000 a unit. Same property? No. Hmm. This is gonna be interesting. You know, this is 90% occupied. And they're ready to sell, and I don't have to renovate. Theoretically, why wouldn't I just buy this? I have to reach out to the broker and get the information, but that won't be a problem. Been listed for like 3 years, so. 20 units, so that's like 50,000 a unit or so, a little bit more. 57.5, so 60 grand a unit. But like that's, you know, these are important things to look at. Like, do these need to be renovated? Are they actually comparable properties? Like, this is not necessarily a comparable property, but it's not like that far off. And I don't have to. This one, I would say potentially is very comparable. You know, just size, location, and everything about it is pretty comparable. Maybe the condition of the property is not as good, but I mean, it's already rented, depending on what it's actually making. Construction has a lot of risk. And so if I'm buying something that I know is going to have construction, then I'm deserve to get a discount, not pay like a premium. They may be charging a premium on those individual units, but yeah, you saw in their email too. They said that the aftermarket value was or the after repair value was like $8 million. Well, this guy's selling the same property basically for, you know, $2.4 million. What if I renovate the whole thing and it's not actually worth that much? Again, that's all kind of to be determined. Anyways, I'm gonna stop here. My computer's going pretty slow. I'm gonna stop here for now, and we will pick this back up because this is an interesting property and it's something that we've been, you know, we're looking for something like this. So we will, you know, I will follow up on this and go to the next step, which is market is comparing, which is going to be looking at the market itself and then looking at the comparable properties, which is exactly what we're just about to start doing. So that's really the next two checklists that we're going to go through is analyzing this market. And part of that is going to be to flush out like what's available, what's not. Is this actually a good deal for the market? Or are we getting, you know, does it just, sometimes you got to zoom out a little bit and say, hey, you know, what's this deal seems, you know, maybe it seems good now when we're looking at it just by itself. And then we look here and say, hey, I could buy this property and not have to rehab anything. So anyways, that's where I'm going to stop tonight, and we'll get into it on the next one.